Hi, it's Christy with the Punk Rock Sherlock, and I gotta tell you, this case is becoming a cluster bleep. So, I think we all just want to know what the truth is, but the truth is getting very, very blurred. I don't think any of us really know what we thought we knew at the beginning of this case. So, evidently, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Tony just did a TikTok with a bunch of people, either last night or this morning, and dropped some information. I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss. I will play the clip in a minute of him talking to these people. And it's kind of hard to hear because there's a lot of over-talking. But the gist of it is, supposedly, they have proof now that that Sunday, the last day that we think we know that we've seen Sebastian, he was texting Katie's mom. I find this odd because we've not heard anything about her even having contact with any of her family. Any of her side of the family. We've heard of nothing. So now Sebastian has been texting her. I find that weird. I mean, maybe we just don't know about it. I don't know. But it's very odd. And supposedly there's some video that shows Sebastian on that Monday alive. But they don't say where the video's from or where he was at for the video to be taken. I don't know if it's cameras from other people's houses. So it's supposed to light the fire of that he ran away. And in this video, it talks about him, like a lot of the police thought, but for the first 72 hours that it was possibly an actual runaway. We didn't know anything about this. They've said nothing to us, which I guess they don't have to tell us anything. But if you want our help, you kind of should, in just my opinion. But there's just so much that's aggravating. And again, like I said, this case, I'm like a dog with a bone. I am obsessed about it, like almost to an unhealthy degree that I've been driving around looking in places myself. Places that I think are going to be logical, and I'll tell you about those places in a minute.
We've got evidence that Sebastian was communicating with Katie's mom the night before he went missing by text. We also got information that there is video footage of him on the 26th now, not just on the 25th. And then the one thing that I think was the biggest bit of information we got was that they had a theory. Now, Stephen broke it down in 24, 48, 72 hours, but they essentially had a theory, a runaway type theory for 72 hours. And after 72 hours, their theory took a 180-degree turn.
Well, let me ask you this. If they had a runaway theory for 72 hours, why were they checking the dump?
Well,
dude, thank you. Thank you.
No idea.
Could have been leads or people calling in.
That's one of the questions I asked, and I got fucking converted. I was like, dodged.
But I was the one that...
Yeah, I want to see that affidavit for it, the search warrant. I want to see the search warrant for it. Like, I want to know what the affidavit and what were...
Well, it would be
the information that led them to get the approval.
Yeah, because they think it's private property, right? A dumpster, even though it belongs to a company, wouldn't that be considered?
Yes.
You would have to have
it. Yeah, they can't just go off of a hunch and the timing, right? They can't go off the fact that it was a 6:33 call, garbage was picked up at 5:13. That doesn't...
And even if they're given permission, they usually get a warrant anyways just to cover their butt so it's not thrown out later in court.
They would need a PCA for that. That's what they would need.
Yeah.
So, Tony, I was the one in the comments that were repeatedly saying that about Chesapeake, and I did message you. I do have that address as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So does Seth plan to have with this new information, does he plan to call a meeting?
If I know Seth was probably on the phone with Bobby Simmons probably about 30 seconds after he got off the phone with me.
Yeah, no doubt.
But you know what's crazy is that, and again, you know, everybody gets all up in arms about all of this time I spend on TikTok, and I will tell you that all of the information we've gathered started out with somebody that I was introduced to on TikTok, just so you guys know.
What did you say? Say that again, Tony. Repeat that, please.
Yes, it confused me.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have wondered why I spent so much time connecting with all these different people on TikTok, but yet all of this information that I was able to give to Seth between Stephen and another person came through people that I met on TikTok.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
It started.
Hey, can I ask you, Tony? Somebody keeps asking this in comments, and I honestly, I do want to know this, because this is the other part of it. It's like with did Sebastian, did he regularly text his grandma?
Not to what we were led to believe. No, not KP's mom.
Dude, because it's crazy, because in my head, like,
strange.
Yep.
Yes.
Do they know what time? People are asking what time of day Sebastian was seen on the 26th in that video.
We don't know that.
they wouldn't give that information.
Okay.
Would not.
I'm sorry, but as a mother, I would never, ever allow my parent to have contact with my child if they were a registered offender. Like, that's just me. Because,
It's just being a good parent, you know?
And we were also told from the beginning.
Not just a registered offender, but the registered offender that also
a child.
say, essays myself.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, that
Didn't they
has not,
essay the mom?
that has not been confirmed, though.
Okay.
I have a question.
Right?
The Kentucky landfill search body, and who's got great notes, was March 7th. So March 7th was the landfill search, according to Body, who always has great notes. So I believe that.
what do they want to know is confirmed?
So somebody said in the comments, I'm basing my information on hearsay.
No.
No, that's not what this is. The person that was sent in front of law enforcement is right here on the panel.
But watching, I'm sure a lot of you have watched pretty much every show that's out there. I've watched a ton and got hooked into a few. And some of them, I'm just like, you're getting your facts wrong, or you're just making crap up. I don't know where you're getting your information from. Like, I'm only going to put information out that I know that we've got a source for, or theories that I've come up with. I don't like this whole he said, she said, oh, this other thing said this. But we're going on with the facts we have. Some of these shows are good, but some of them, I think they're just talking out of their arses. You've got one show when the neighbor came forward and you could hear the neighbor talking. The one host thought it was a woman. That's not a woman, that's a man. An old man, but a man. There's another thing going around that, oh, Katie, well, she was an MMA fighter. Where are you getting that from? Now, there is a Catherine Proudfoot from California that is an MMA fighter, and I will put a picture down below. But it's not the same Katie. In fact, she goes by Cat Proudfoot. But no, not the same Katie. To my knowledge, the Katie Proudfoot we're talking about has never done MMA. And if you know differently, by all means, in the comments, tell me your source, because I just want to be educated too. There's a video of a ruckus. So there's a ruckus, and if you really... Some of you don't know how cameras work. Okay, first, there's not a lot of light. So, and especially when you're zooming as much as that is, it creates what they call noise. So, you'll see pixelations, and it looks like movement, but there's really no movement. It's just the noise that the video creates. So, when you're seeing people fighting and there's someone on the ground. You're not seeing any of that. It's like when you look up in clouds and there's a dog and there's there's a butterfly. No, your mind's playing tricks on you. That video, and again, unless I'm really, really wrong, but I don't think I am, you're seeing noise and your brain is tricking yourself into thinking you're seeing actual movement and actual people, but those are not there. So, no, there was no ruckus. There's theories of Junior being involved. Who is Junior? I've looked all over. I don't know who this Junior is you're talking about. If you're talking about Terry Bowersox Jr., he doesn't want anything to do with his family. He's living in Kentucky. He says Chris is a psycho. He's insane. He does not speak well of his stepmom, Kathy, which would be Chris's mom. Says she's a nut job. So, yeah, if you're talking about Junior, you're not talking about Terry Bowersox Jr. because he doesn't like any of them. He's not going to be doing any of that. Now, there's some that are like, I hate to defend any of them, but there are ways we talk in the South, because there's clips that are being played, and I wish I could think of one right now, but it'll show, you'll hear Katie saying things, when I went to go wake him up. That's just how we talk here in the South. We would say, I know it may not make sense to other regions of the country or other countries, but yeah, we would say that. Nothing odd about that at all. I went to go wake him up. He wasn't there. That's just how we talk. Some of these hosts, like, I like them at first, and then the more I get to know them, the more I'm like, something's not wrong with this person. Like, there's one, I don't remember who it was, and I won't name him anyway. Didn't know orphanages still existed. They never went away. You don't hear about them as much, but orphanages are still a thing. There's orphanages in every state, several in every state. So yeah, they still exist. There's another guy who I kind of was interested in him, and at first I thought, oh, he's kind of kooky or whatever. And then another host from a different show, I wish I could find the video to show you, showed a video of this host wrapped in a Nazi flag. And then the more I researched this host, he's like this crazy dude who will sue anyone at the drop of a hat. Now, do these suits go to fruition? No. He's, I think, got the Guinness World Record of the most lawsuits filed. So that makes me not really want to watch any of his stuff either. There's some shows where people are just taking someone else's clip and basically that's their entire show, with them as like a little circle watching and maybe saying a few things here or there. That's their entire show. If you want to use part of a clip, that's fine. That's totally, fair use. But if that's your entire show, you're kind of abusing that. And some of these shows that are 4 hours long, what are y'all talking about for 4 hours? 4 hours. Now, do I get sucked in and watch them? Yeah. Now, there's some good ones, like Pascal. I'm digging him. He seems like a very legit journalist. And there's other people that call themselves journalists that I don't know. He is a journalist. There's another one, The Break the Case with Jen Koffendorfer, who's an old retired, she's not old, she's a retired FBI agent. So there was a great interview, I think a lot of us have watched, that was from earlier in this week, that had Seth, and bless his heart, I mean, he looked rugged, but he did the one interview with Jen, and then later did the 2-hour interview with, I think, Pascal. There's the Peter Hyatt, which I'm digging him. Look him up. He's a statement analyst. He's an instructor. So he teaches statement analysis and analytic interviewing to law enforcement. So he's kind of neat. Like, he's one of those that deals with, like, body language and stuff, too. Really listens to, like, if you can find one of his, I think he might have even been in one of these shows as well. Like, he will stop, rewind, you'll listen to the interview again, and he will break down what they say. Awesomely amazing. And he brought up some good points, too, about the whole Sebastian Bow wedding. he said a lot of times you'll see in SA cases, like a signal that just pops out at him is bedwetting. So that leads the question, has Sebastian been SA'd more than we realize? And I've heard, again, I don't have proof of this. I wish if anyone's got proof of this, of Chris supposedly essaying a cousin or a stepsister or something like that when they were kids. If you've got any of that, link that. I want to know about it. But he brought up some really good points. And then the other night on the lab, there's Dr. Brucato, who has got a PhD at the New School for Social Research in New York City. He's a clinical psychologist, a researcher, and author in the areas of psychotic illnesses and violence. And then Chris McDonough, he's a retired homicide detective. That was a really good interview on the lab. So if you can check that up if you haven't watched them already. And there's a few others, like I think, that are actually getting in the trenches and getting out there that's good. But there's a lot that I'm like, they're saying Henderson and Gatlin, those are not the cities. They're cities, but they're not the cities. It's Hendersonville and Gallatin. Hendersonville and Gallatin. Not Gatlin, not Henderson, and it's Sumner County. And, wow, it's, again, so much. Like, in these interviews, Seth mentions that he got the CPS reports to TBI. Sumner County had them, and he was shocked TBI didn't have them. I want to be shocked, but again, I grew up in Sumner County. I do not have a lot of faith in the local police. I'm not shocked TBI didn't have it, because I feel like, I'm not saying there's any inside interference. There could be. I mean, it is a good old boys club up in there. Even that there's money in that town now, there's still that good old boy atmosphere there, in my opinion. Again, I haven't lived there in a minute, but Chris Proudfoot going on and on and on and on. Oh, God, all these interviews, him just going off on women. Let me tell you, buddy, I'm one that I'm not afraid of you. You may not be watching this. You may not watch any of my stuff. I don't really care. But, yeah, I'm not going to buckle for you. That PI that you were going off and calling the other PI the C word and everything except a child of God, you wouldn't say that shit to my face. Not to my face. And if you did, you'd get as good as you got. You would get as good as you gave. Let me tell you that. And he's saying in interviews, like Chris is, that he can't give away details because law enforcement has told him not to. I don't know if I believe that. Like, he can't tell you what time he was home or what model of the van that's her work truck. I'm like, we all know we've seen the pictures. We know what kind of van it is. And that you can't give your timeline. I don't think the police told you not to do that, unless it's police that were on your side telling you, bitch, keep your mouth shut, which I think is plausible. Don't know that for sure. Now, why was he even on the 911 call? She calls, oh my God, Chris, I can't find Sebastian, da-da-da-da-da. All right, hold on. I'll call the sheriff's department, because that way we live in this rural area and we won't get the cop. What? Hendersonville is a pretty big town in Sumner County. Now, if your dumbass calls 911, yeah, you're getting the Memphis 911. If she calls, it just seems very much like Katie might be at the hand of abuse as well. Not saying that gives her any right to do anything, but it is weird how, and they brought this up in, I think it was the lab that was talking about it. There's so many times, and I noticed it too when I first saw the interview, where he'll say something and she'll be like, yeah, and they'll even mimic hand movements and body language, and I'm like, you do that when you've been abused. Again, I'm not a psychologist. Again, these are only my theories, not based on fact. But I think I'm right. So he wasn't even there. What's he doing all the talking, too? In the interviews, he's doing all the talking. Interviews without her, he's doing all the talking. And there's been a lot more interviews without her than with her. I don't think I've heard any interviews of her alone. There might be some out there, but I've not heard them. Why was he on the phone call? Why did he make the call? Why did he stay on it? Because he wasn't there. He didn't know anything more than the cops did, allegedly, if he wasn't there. Anyway, so he comes across as an abuser. He just does. The way he feels entitled to tell anybody whatever he thinks. Caught on these shows acting like, Sling Blade. Who does that when you got a kid that's missing? You're acting batshit crazy, my friend. And I think we can all agree with that. I didn't like him from that first interview I saw him. And that was, I think, the interview that was on the news here. But then it made me look up that Olivia interview as well. And I'm like, I think sometimes you can judge a book by their cover. I think you can. Because I looked at him, those beady eyes, did not trust him any further than I could throw him. And the more I'm hearing about him, boy howdy was all right. He called the sheriff instead. Now, if you call a sheriff, is that call recorded? Maybe not. He wasn't even there. He's doing all the talking. He's got this very, very controlling nature. I think we can all agree that we've seen that. He only answers the questions he wants. And if he gets a question he doesn't like, he reflects it back. Like, he'll change it and he'll ask, well, what? He'll get all upset. Answer the question. He goes berserk on women. And I'm sure he's done a few interviews with men. He sure acted straight with Nancy Grace because that was on television. So I think he knew to keep his mouth where it should be. But he wasn't going to go off on her. And I think it's because it was videoed. And they have done, to my knowledge, zero searching. That I find, the police told us not to. What? They did? Oh yeah, and let me tell you, I don't care how many death threats I was getting. If my kid was missing, I would not drive 3 hours away just in case he came through the door. I would be so sure I was there. If I wasn't searching, I'd be home. And let me tell you something else. I would definitely be on anything and everything that would let me talk. News, interviews, whatever. You would be sick of my face and my voice. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And then, he doesn't want dogs to search, put out this email to, I think, one of the investigators. Like, I don't want anyone to search mine or my family's property. Well, that speaks volumes now, doesn't it? Now, it could be because, I don't want you bugging my parents and stuff. Or is it because... I'm just saying. What would it hurt? What would it hurt? If you really... I'd be begging you to bring the dogs. In any other circumstance, you'd be hard-pressed to even get dogs. Let alone multiple times. And you're going to not agree to it? Let me tell you, dog people, I got some ideas of places you can look, and it's not going to be on their property, but it's going to be pretty darn close. So it would technically not be their property. Seth brought up, when they, whoever it was, released that phone call about Seth saying that he thought maybe Katie gave him too much medicine and he overdosed. It's a pretty good theory because I don't know what medicines he was on. Then you find out he had like crazy insomnia and would have to take. So can imagine, again, my theory, I want to know, and that's a question they never answered. Was this a typical weekend? What is a typical weekend? We're working people. Now answer the question. You're not answering the question. Is that what you would normally do on a weekend? Would you be doing your errands, but then you go bowling, and then you go out to... Is that normal? And maybe it is. Maybe it totally is. But if it's not normal, you gave him a huge day. And I remember before I put my dog down, and I knew it was going to be his last day, I gave him a big day. Again, maybe it was accidental. Maybe she had nothing to do with it. But, again, this is all alleged. But if she did, just saying, and to do zero searching. And now, when Seth made the comment of, if I'd have known a week after he was gone, what I know now, he wouldn't be gone. I'm getting his paraphrasing off, but that tells me he finally got the CPS reports. He can't divulge them, of course. I guess legal, blah, blah, blah. But man, there's got to be something good in there. And I'm counting more CPS calls than people are bringing up. Because we know there was a CPS call on Chris in regards to Faith. And that one, I think they said, was New Mexico. There was the CPS call with Sebastian in California when he got SA'd. Supposedly CPS call about the belt whipping. And again, I'm from the South. We get the belt. But again, it's like, not every day. I mean, like, it's more of a threat than actual. I mean, you got to do something really bad to get the belt. Again, there's, it's abuse. That's debatable. I've never whipped a kid with a belt. Did I threaten him? Sure did. Did I whip him with a switch? You betcha. But again, it was like a dead limb. Anyway, we could talk about that another day. And then there's the CPS report Chris said that was due to that's the only open one, allegedly, according to him, because of the missing child. Well, I'm counting 4 CPS reports there. Nina's with Faith, California SA, belt, and now missing kid. Pardon me. That's 4. And he only said there was one that was open. Well, how many were there? Because I raised a kid to 18. I had 0 CPS calls. 0. So, now, the interviews the other day on Pascal, and so the Jen one was first. It was about like an hour long, I think, interview or so. Then there was the 2 hours with Pascal. And we got a lot of information from those 2 interviews. And some people might ask, well, why is this pertinent? I'm going to get to that. Firstly, we learn about the whole marriage between Katie and Seth, right? So they got married. Katie was probably about 18 or 19 when they got married. There's so many people like, well, they were dating way before that. That's a discussion for another day. Focus. So they got married. She was 18 or 19. She got pregnant. Was she pregnant before? I don't know. But she had the baby at 19. That we know is fact. Katie almost immediately, according to Seth, enlisted in the Navy, which would make Seth be forced to become a stay-at-home dad. Okay? And supposedly Seth noticed that Sebastian was special and, had him going to, like learning places or whatnot. But I didn't find out until the lab show, according to the guys on the lab, which I put those as experts, so I'm thinking anything they said is pretty spot on. Sebastian didn't get diagnosed till a couple of years ago. So he was just normally going about business until 2 years ago when he got an actual diagnosis. And again, if I'm wrong, it's because the people in the lab are wrong, but I don't think they're wrong because, to me, again, they're the experts. They would know. I would hope. So she enrolls in the Navy almost immediately to get, health care for him because he was a sickly kid. And I'm thinking, because he didn't make it sound like it was a decision they'd made. And, I mean, maybe they did. I don't know. But it does seem very odd that you're this new mother. When I popped mine out, I mean, I did everything I could think of to stay with her for as long as I could. And then, of course I had to have a job and put her in daycare, but I sure didn't join the Navy. Had she always wanted to be in the Navy? We don't know. I don't know. So, they separate and file for divorce 2018. This is, again, according to Seth. I know Chris was in the military, but was he in the Navy too? Does anyone know? Because I've tried looking it up and I can't find what branch he was in. I've heard people say Marines, but I don't know if that's true. Heard somebody message me and told me that it was the Navy. Is that how he and Katie met? They were both in California. And then all of a sudden she's wanting a divorce. While Seth, it sounds like, was in another state raising Sebastian at part of the time, if I'm getting the interview facts correct. So I'm not sure when they got married, Chris and Katie, but it seems like it was pretty darn close after that divorce from Seth. Was he the reason that they divorced? I'm bringing this up for a number of reasons. One, it shows that she can't be on her own. I mean, she went from her home life to Seth to Chris. So she's never really lived on her own, I'm gathering from all of this. I know that the people are bringing up what's one thing Chris got all mad about is her upbringing, that she was in foster care for a while, and her mom and stepfather, I mean, it sounds like they were all just pieces of work, aunt and everything else. But again, gives us an idea about her. But it also, did she really want kids? A lot of, Seth said this was the first pregnancy to go to full term. A lot of people are throwing the abortion word around. Do we know that? Was she getting them aborted, or did she miscarry? Those are two very big differences. We don't know, and I've heard no one say to the contrary. So we have to assume that they were miscarriages if we're not told otherwise. We can't just assume. But let's say that's correct and it was an abortion. Did she even want kids? Doesn't seem like it. If you run off to the Navy right away, and maybe your mind is like, if I do this, I'm going to be able to provide better for my kid. I don't know. Was it a shotgun wedding? We've all been there. I'm illegitimate. It's a thing. And we don't know what was in the CPS reports, but we know there were multiple. We don't know, but we kind of do, don't we? With everything we've learned about Chris, from what Chris has shown us about Chris, I think we got a good idea what might have been in those CPS reports. And I giggle a little bit because if you've ever seen the movie Office Space, they always talk about TPS reports. So every time I hear CPS, I think TPS reports. Tangent. Funny movie. Check it out. But it does make me think that those neighbors were 100% truthful that came up and have spoken. Chris being insane on shows, super abusive, verbally controlling. He makes everything about him. Even when you ask a question about Sebastian, he seems to turn around and make it about him. Have you noticed that? I can't be the only one that's noticed that. He's been married 5 times. 5 times. 5 times. And I've heard in interviews on other shows, like he'll give parenting advice and he'll give relationship advice. Chris, you giving relationship advice is like me going and buying a cookbook from Jeffrey Dahmer. No. And here's the thing. You've been married 5 times. You've been divorced 4. 4 different divorces. 1 divorce, it might be them. 4 divorces, you might be the problem. You might be the problem in all of these situations. And that would kind of... People throw the word narcissism around, but it might be correct. If anything, one of the professionals, experts brought up that that it could be almost like psychotic behavior, and I'm like, I don't disagree with that either. They brought up so many things that were things that I've been thinking about too, so it's so nice to be vindicated in a way. Chris, oh, but he's got an airtight alibi. Some of these other shows are saying that. I'm like, Bully does. He's got an alibi for being at work a little after 5 a.m. Where's his alibi for all the time before that? And if there is one, I have not heard it. So again, if you know, put it in the comments. I want to be educated too. So, no alibi from I don't even know, all weekend. Does he have an alibi for the entire weekend? He wasn't at work, I would imagine, if he's working the weekends, but whatever. What about that time? And I get it. So many people are like, oh, law enforcement isn't doing enough. They're not doing enough. Well, you gotta tread lightly. Because if they act too rash, make an arrest now, they don't have an airtight case, and let's say they do try him, and he's found not guilty, then new evidence pops up. Well, they can't try him again. That would be double jeopardy, and I think we've all seen that movie, which was really good. Hats off, Ashley Judd. But they can't retry him again, so it's a very delicate dance that they're doing here. So they have to, I imagine they've got to be keeping hush on some of the things they know, just to not give them a heads up. Because the longer this goes on, the more they're thinking they're getting away with it. If that's what has happened. Again, just saying, allegedly. I believe, and I hope I'm wrong, but I believe it's going to be a recovering a body situation. And I believe if that's the case, they're going to find the body closer to home than not. And here's why. So many people are like, oh, well, he had to go move his RV, and maybe that's when he did something. And, well, Katie came in the cover of Night, and was that the thing, the cover of Night? And I'm like, I mean, those all could be possible. Are they probable? I don't know. Because this is what I would think. If I had unalived somebody, I want to get rid of the body as soon as possible. It's happened at night, most likely. So I can work in the cover of darkness. That's for sure. And my first gut knee-jerk reaction was that maybe Seth drove all the way up here from Memphis because it's 3 hours. And that was a 3-hour conversation, which, unless you're 15 years old, who has a 3-hour conversation with anybody? Only teenage girls. Nobody, unless you're first getting to know somebody. And this was definitely not the case. They'd been married a few years by now. 5 years or so, I think. They've only been living in that house about 2.5 years, according to the neighbor. And records that I've pulled up on when they bought the house. So, something happens. Oh my God. Something's happened. Either he took too many pills and he's not waking up, or, I went to smack him and his head hit the nightstand, or just theories. Oh yeah, I'm freaking out. Chris, all right, look, you stay there, plug your phone in so it doesn't turn off. I'm going to plug my phone in, just put it down. That way it'll look like we've been talking to each other for 3 hours for the time it takes me to get there. I mean, that was my first gut knee-jerk thought when the case first started. So, I don't want to be seen on cameras. But if I go in, like, around back, if you've been around there, you've got to go kind of a weird way to get into where this construction area is if you're going by car. But if they, they'd have to go through, because she's got a fence that goes all the way, a gate that goes all the way around her backyard that I can't see a door for, so I don't know if there's a door there or not. So if that is the case, she'd have to go around it, but go through other yards that may not have those kind of gates. And, oh my God, come get him. And he throws the body over, goes back to the construction where nobody can see him, drives off from there. You don't want to drive around with a dead body in your car for 3 hours to go all the way back to Yogi Bear or to Natchez Trace. I wouldn't. And I'd also thought, knee-jerk, I'm like, just when I look at an overhead map of the area where Chris's mom is, there's woods behind, there's a place I've been to where I can see like fields where it looks like power lines are. Could be also farmland over there. And there's a big pond, but I couldn't get to it. to look around, because you got to go kind of a weird way to get there in a car as well, to the area I was looking at. So that, again, that's just really risky. I wouldn't dump a body on Long Hollow Pike because there's just too much traffic. Even at night, there's too much traffic. But if I were leaving out of their subdivision, take a right, second road, take another right, drive about a half mile to a mile, there's a pond that if you don't know is there, you won't know it, and dump areas where I've seen a couple of mattresses. All right. This is why I think you're going to find the body close to home, because it goes with their narrative. Their narrative is he walked out the door. I don't know why he walked out that door. He walked away. They've been preaching that since the beginning. Well, if a body is found within a few miles, it tracks with their story. Like, see, he was only a few miles away. Oh, okay. So that could be either, there's a woman that's in the UK. I like listening to her. She talks about the woods up north, and that's where I think too. But then this area I'm talking about is a little more south, but it's still a lot of area to cover. If he were to walk off, yeah, he could go to those woods. Sure. It would be hard to go that way to hide a body because you're going to have to go by a lot of houses. But if he was going to walk off, he could have walked off into those woods. But where I'm talking about, it would be close enough that they could say, oh, he did walk away. Oh, again, he could have. Now, if a body's found in another town, another state, that's a different narrative. And it doesn't go with what they've been preaching. Say if Chris or this junior person drove the body somewhere, or if the body was found near Chris's mom's house, that completely goes against the narrative of that he walked off. So if a body was actually found, it would go against the whole walk off. He walked off on his own thing. Again, there are little to no interviews with Katie. And like I said, you'd be sick of my voice. You'd be sick of seeing this face if mine was lost. She follows his leads. Like, one of the experts brought that up. Just like how she mirrors. If he laughs, she'll, laugh. If he points, she'll point. She doesn't seem to be able to think for herself. And that is another instance of either abuse or you're just a weaker person. Which you would think not. Again, she was in the Navy. She basic training and all that. And if you listen to some people, MMA. Gosh, why? Why wouldn't you have done any interviews alone? And what interviews you see... Again, we're talking like 9 days after he first went missing was her first interview. And that was on the Olivia show. And then the one with Holly Thompson was after that. That was the actual news one. It just seemed so rehearsed. And the rocking just... I don't know. If it was me and I knew I was going to be on TV, I'd be reliving the whole thing again. My eyes would be so puffy, it would be ridiculous. I'd have to be like wiping my nose, blowing my nose, because I'd be just boohooing all over the place. Even after a week, I'd still be that way. Her eyes were a little red. I'll give you that. But it just almost seemed void of emotion. Or put on emotion. Like with Seth, even now, Seth is like, I just want to know where my kid is. I just want to know where my kid is. That's all. You've not heard her say that. She said, I hope he's okay. But she's never said, which I'm sure every parent would say that too. Like I would probably say, yeah, I want to know that he's safe and I want to know where he is. I want him to be back. I want him to be in my arms. But she's never said that. It just seems so rehearsed. And why wait 8 days? I mean, I would be, that day I found him missing, I'd be talking to anybody and everybody that would listen. I would. And then, that first interview you actually do, it's a podcast and not real news. And not that podcasts aren't real news, but you know what I mean. 3 hour phone call. A thud. And then in other times, it wasn't a thud. So, a lot of changes in stories. And just the details that were given, like I'd say, she'd say, "Good night, Mama, I love you. Love you, puppies." I mean, like, just her mousy way of talking feels very put on. Because she seems like she would be a bitch. And it seems like to be with, I'm not saying bitch is a negative word. Bitch can be a great word. I'm a bitch. But like, if you're with a guy like Chris, you're either very weak or you're just like him. And just, it's so funny because like that old picture of them at a restaurant of just her, it's like her and Sebastian. It's an older picture, but she's all done up, makeup, hair's done. We've not seen that Katie. We've not seen one Katie with her makeup done and her hair done. It seems like she's the kind of person that would have her hair done. Anyway, so what really, really gets up underneath me is how they make Sebastian seem so helpless. Now, according to Seth, he was in school, he can cook, he plays these video games. I mean, he may be a little odd due to the autism, but he's not helpless. He's not incapable. I mean, and other people are talking like, oh, maybe she was just so upset because she would have to take care of him the rest of his life. He's not that bad. The boy can cook. He can clean himself. He puts on clothes. He goes to mostly regular school classes other than a couple of special classes, according to the students that he's classmates with that I spoke to. And, oh, you shouldn't talk to minors. F off, man. News talks to minors all the time. Don't need their parents' permission. I didn't record them. I didn't ask their name. I didn't take a picture of them. So it's going to be okay. Anyway, I'm very worked up about this story. If you have not noticed, quite passionate about it. But he's not helpless. He doesn't have like a form of retardation. Autism, to my knowledge, similar, but not of the same vein. I mean, he's not missing chromosomes, to my knowledge. And again, if I'm wrong, if he does have a chromosome depletion or excess, please let me know. But he's got autism. Autism, it's not the same. Similar, but not the same. And again, he was only diagnosed a couple of years ago, so clearly he was functioning before that. Had health problems, of course. He had that fluid on his, I don't know if it's on his brain or on his skull or whatever, which that's dangerous. Again, if he fell, thud, again, just a theory. And I guess she's just so deceptive in her body movements. Like, I'm not buying the rockin'. And just like, I don't know. It seems very put on to me. So, in any crime, at least any detective show I've ever seen, you've got to have three things. Motive, means, opportunity. Means, they had vehicles to take a body somewhere, opportunity, cover of night. Everyone's away, she was home alone with Sebastian, allegedly. Again, we don't know that for sure. I still think she had something to do with if he's demised. Chris, possibly, but I think it's more her. But that's just my gut. Motives, money. In my other video, I talk about, are they living above their means? Possibly. Especially if he was going to go move in with Seth, would that mean that she'd be paying child support to Seth? Chris wanted Faith. Now, just because Chris wasn't Faith doesn't mean Chris was going to get Faith. He had a long road to hoe on that one. He wasn't going to get Faith. He thinks he was going to get one, but so he didn't want Sebastian around his daughter. So that's a motive too. Got to get him out of the picture because I don't want him. I'm trying to get my daughter, and I don't want someone who's been SA'd, who could possibly be an SA, around my daughter, allegedly. And neighbors saying, it's him or me. which again, I'm believing he's the kind of guy that sounds like he would say something like that. I'm believing the neighbors. And Sebastian was gonna be moving in with Seth. Now, as a mom, I mean, in interviews, you could see like that Seth really did love Katie at one point and still upset about stuff, which makes me think she cheated on him. But that's just, again, it leads to one to the other. It does. Some of you are like, what does that have to do with it? It's got everything to do with it. It's got a lot to do with it. And so you've got, it's make a decision. It's him or me. Oh, this kid's getting expensive, even though he's only going to have him 3 more years. And he was going to move in with Seth. That would really upset a mama bear to be like, oh, think about how many times you've watched the ID channel and like a boyfriend offs the girlfriend because it's like, it's either if I can't have you, no one can. Just putting that out there. Again, these are all my theories, but based on what facts we know. This isn't me pulling crap out of the air like Katie was an MMA fighter. Or, again, if you've got proof of that, please let me know. If he was diagnosed earlier, which, according to those guys, he'd only been diagnosed since he's been in high school. So, a lot to ponder here. Do we believe the runaway? I don't. I still don't. Even after I want to see that video. That's the only, how do we know Sebastian's the one that did the texting? Could that have been Katie trying to make my mother kidnapped him? We don't know. Did they text a lot? Is there a record of her and Sebastian texting back and forth? We don't know. If we could see that video, know where the video was, know for sure what day it was, give us more to work on. So all you internet sleuths, thank you for watching this. If you watched it all the way through, I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, click on the like button and the subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And thank you so much again for the support. I've also got links below if you would like to monetarily support because I'm poor. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you, and check back again.